Hey guys, it's Mariana, and today I'm going to be doing my February wrap up. I kind of don't want to spend too much time talking. I need to hurry up and get through this video because I read 18 books, so that's 18 books I'm gonna have to talk about. So all these books I read were for the BookTube Games, which is a month-long readathon that I host, and I'll be doing one again in the summertime. So if you missed the one for February, there will be one in July. I read To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han, and this was a reread. I read this specifically so I could tab up the book, and I reread this book so much. Like, I love it. Peter Kavinsky is the love of my life, like the man of my dreams. I need me a freaking Peter K. So the next book I read was Stranger Things, Worlds Turned Upside Down. I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was really cool. I got to see my children again. I got to see my boyfriend Steve. Like, there's literally, I'm not holding this book upside down. Like, I'm literally not, like, I'm not holding this book upside down at all. Like, there's pages that are upside down, if you can tell. And I really enjoyed this book. It was really cool, and I loved everything about it. But after that was Robin Hood, which I gave 2 stars. This is my little brother's book. Like, I literally went over to my little brother's shelf and I picked it up. This is my little brother's book. I thought I was gonna love the story of Robin Hood because, like, a vigilante, like we stand. This book was so freaking boring. I've never been so bored in my life. Like, there was nothing entertaining about Robin Hood at all. And I don't know if it was just like, because this says it's retold. So I don't know if it's because it's not written by, like, the original writer or whatever. So I'm going to try to find the original Robin Hood because I feel like I would be such a Robin Hood stan. Like, he's right up my alley. But I did not enjoy this book. Did not. 2 out of 10. Would not recommend. Next book I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I gave 3 stars. In March on my TBR is A Court of Mist and Fury, so hopefully I'll get to that soon. I like this book. It just didn't hold up to the expectations that I had. Like, everything about this book was good, but the ending didn't really, like, go how I wanted it to go. And if you want to see more thoughts on this video, I did a book swap with one of my good BookTube friends, Kevin from Irish Reader, where he read my favorite book. What's my favorite book? The Cruel Prince, and I read his favorite book, A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I will leave that video linked down below. But if you want to hear more thoughts on how I felt, like it was like I did a vlog for it, so if you want to see that, I'll leave it linked down below. I read Boys of Bristol High, which was a 5-star read. Boys of Bristol High is a dark romance about this girl. Well, it's kind of dark, not really, but like a little bit. It's about this girl who is, like, her mom is basically a prostitute, and they finally take her out of the system after she gets into this fight. So she gets sent to this town, and she has to live in this girls group home, and she's sent to, like, go to this school called Bristol High. And there's these boys of Bristol High whose dad is, like, their last names are Brayshaw, so, like, their dad basically, like, owns it. And the girl doesn't want to follow their rules. Like, they set the rules for everything, and, like, everybody does what they say, and the girl doesn't want to do that. So they're like, nah, like, you better listen to me. And she's like, nah, I don't want to. And then so it's like this, them going back and forth, and then it gets, like, really, really dark. And I love that book so much. I cannot wait for the next book to come out because that ending was one of my favorite endings ever. And if you are into, like, dark new adult romance, I highly recommend you check out Boys of Bristol High because it is, like, right now my all-time favorite dark new adult romance. Like, that ending really left me, like, messed up. The next book I read was Declan Caroline, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. The story was basically about this guy who's, like, his family is, like, drug dealers, basically. Like, they're like the mob kind of stories. And she is, like, this regular girl. Like, her dad, like, owns, like, this bank or whatever. And he meets her at, like, a coffee shop, and, like, she brushes him off. And then the same night, they meet each other again. And I don't know how fate works for you guys. Maybe fate just hates me, or maybe I don't have fate because I'm not that lucky to see, like, for a cute guy to see me and then him see me again later that day and then want to get my number. I don't know. The universe hates me, apparently. So I just didn't like how the main character, the main girl was black. I didn't like how she used stereotypical tropes of her being dark skinned and her cousin being light skinned. So all the guys would go towards her, and like I just didn't like. There was this one scene where he was wearing this black suit and she was like, "Oh, Prince Charming." He was like, "Prince Charming, no, I like black." And then he like winked at her, and I was like, no. So I don't know if I'm going to be continuing on with the series because I didn't really like that book, but I shouldn't let that book deter me from it. The book after that I read was The Kiss Thief, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Thinking back on it, probably deserved 3 out of 5 stars. The Kiss Thief was written by L.J. Shin, which, I mean, she's not one of my favorite new adult authors, but like I like her, and then I'll put out anything that I'll read anything she puts out. I buddy read this with Melanie from Milton Annie, so I'll link her channel down below. But The Kiss Thief is basically about this girl who lives in like this Italian family, and her dad only wants, so she wants to go to college and be like a successful woman, but her dad is like, "No, you're too beautiful, you're gonna have kids, you're gonna be married, blah, blah, blah." Her dad has like this very old-fashioned way of thinking, which throughout the book it really annoyed me. But they go to like this dance or whatever, and she meets this senator who's like really young. She's 18, by the way. She's 18 or 19. I believe she's 19. But she meets this senator who's like 30. He's like really young for a senator. And she like sees him, and she never talks to him, by the way. She just sees him, and she sees like him interacting with another girl. And so she's like, "Oh, I don't like him." And then there's this another guy, and I believe his name was like Angelo. And he's like her childhood love, which also really creeped me out because Angelo, there was this one scene where she was like, "Oh, when did you first fall in love with me?" He was like, "Oh, you were 16 and I was like 21, and I saw you when you were so beautiful and I fell in love with you." And I was like, "Oh, no, that's not what we're doing here. We're not doing that, sir. We don't do that." She has this dance with the senator, and she's telling the senator about this box that her family has been passed down, and it says that on that night she's gonna kiss the love of her life. And so she goes, she's like waiting for like Angelo or whatever, and this guy who she thinks is Angelo walks out, and he kisses her, and it turns out that it's the senator. And the next day the senator has like this grudge against her dad, and so the next day like he's like talking to her dad, and he's like, "Okay, well, I want to take your daughter to marry her." So now she's set to live with him, and basically it's kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, like a little bit, but like loosely, but like a little bit. It's never said that, but I'm saying it. I'm saying that, okay? The author never says it, but I am. I read The Umbrella Academy, which I didn't give a rating to, but I read The Umbrella Academy because if you've been watching like my last couple of videos, then you know that The Umbrella Academy is one of my all-time favorite TV shows now, and I'm totally obsessed with it. So I said, let me read the comic book. So I read the graphic novel, and I read the graphic novel, and I'm the kind of person that if I don't like the art, I'm not really gonna like the graphic novel, and I didn't like the art, so. And I also read Buffy the Vampire Slayer graphic novel, the one that came out in 2017, which I didn't give a rating to because it was just like the TV show, which I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, who doesn't love Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Like, if you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, then you love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I've never met a person who watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer and didn't love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know? You know. After that, I read this book called Debt Inheritance, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars to. And this book is about this girl whose family owes this debt to this other family, so he takes her to live with him. It's a new adult romance, of course, and it was pretty good. It wasn't bad. I listened to the audiobook, which wasn't a good idea because it had a lot of smut in it, and I learned my lesson from reading smut in the audiobook. I wouldn't suggest it. I learned my lesson. I'm never doing that again. So then I read The Long Walk by Stephen King, which I gave 4 to 5 stars to. I really liked The Long Walk. This guy, well, this town, this world, I guess it's kind of a dystopian. So this world that does this long walk, and basically by the end of it, you know that the people that you walk with are gonna die. Like, it's rare that you're ever gonna win. It's like these boys, they all go on this walk, And yeah, it was really good. The thing about Stephen King that kind of like deters me from reading his novels is the beginnings are really, really slow, and he has a lot of like setup for his stories. And like there could be this one little detail that he will just make so big and so long. And that's why I kind of like deter from Stephen King's stories sometimes, because it's like, get to the point. Get to the point, sir. Please get to the point. But yeah, I actually really liked Long Walk. And then I read Two Prince of Summer, which I was gonna buddy read with Whitney, but she was like, oh, I have my TBR for this month all set up. And I was like, okay, we can just read it next month. But then I ran out of books to read. So, but Two Princes of Summer is a fairy book, and it's about this girl whose parents are dead, and these two princes, well, she lives in like the human world, and then these two princes who live in like the fairy world, and they're best friends, but they're treated as brothers because the older one parents die, so the younger one parents take him in, and they kind of treat the older one like trash because it's not that's not their real son. But like the dad like treats him really good, but the mom treats him like trash because that's not her real son. But they're best friends, but they're also treated like brothers. And so the younger one ends up taking the girl into fairyland because she makes him stronger basically. And the two brothers are like fighting to become, they're fighting to become king. And I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I listened to the audiobook. It was a really quick audiobook, but I mean, I liked everything about it. Like I liked I didn't mind the love triangle. I actually really liked the love triangle, and this book made me really confused because usually when I read a book with a love triangle, I automatically decide, oh, okay, this person is terrible, I like him. But they're fairies, so they're both terrible in different ways. So I really cannot tell you which guy I want her to end up with, because it's not like one really sweet, nice prince and one like bad boy prince. Like they're both bad boys in their own ways. And that's why I like them both. So I really don't care who she ends up with. I'm going to continue to read the series. It's a really long series. So I'm going to continue to read the series, but I don't care who she ends up with because both of the guys are beautiful. Then I read Curse So Dark and Lonely, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Like I loved A Curse So Dark and Lonely so much. A Curse So Dark and Lonely is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is like an urban fantasy because it's set in like a fantasy world, but it's also set in the real world. So in this fantasy world called Emberfall lives this prince, and he is like cursed to be the beast. And so he has this commander who like one day out of the year he gets an hour to go to the real world to get a girl who willingly like consents to coming back with him. And so he has this girl, and then the main character, Harper, who lives in the real world, witnesses him like carrying this girl, and she's like, oh, did she consent to this? Like, what is this? So she fights to defend her, and like they end up with Harper, and they're like fighting, and she's on top of him, and they end up back in Emberfall. So it's like she's not like, it's not like she's not willing her, but it's not like he kidnapped her either, like, you know. So I think this is like a really good way of doing the Beauty and the Beast retelling, to where it's not like he kidnapped her. I really liked it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. If you want to see a review of it, I did a double feature non-spoiler review of this book, and I have a review on my Goodreads. I read The Gilded Wolves, which is the second book in my double feature non-spoiler review, which is where I reviewed 2 books by 2 different authors that I read, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The Gilded Wolves is kind of like Six of Crows. Like I got Six of Crows feels throughout this whole book. Set in Paris in 1889, and it's about these group of friends who are like going on a heist. And I really like this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, as I said before. I know that a lot of people didn't like this book, but I really enjoyed it. I cried. I got some favorite characters. I'm going to be rereading this book in March, hopefully, so I can tab it up. It's deco edges, which I've never tabbed deco edges before, so I'm a little worried. But I personally really love this story. I really love the characters. Like, I love the friendship. And though I got kind of annoyed because of the Six of Crows, like how much it reminded me of Six of Crows, I didn't mind it at the same time, if that makes sense. Next on my list, I read P.S. I Still Love You and Always and Forever Laura Jean, which were rereads so I could tab the whole series. And I gave these both books 5 out of 5 stars. Of course, I love this series. So then I read Peter and the Starcatchers, which is a Peter in the Pan retelling. I say retelling because it's about Peter and the Pan. It's about Peter Pan, but it's basically kind of like the story of how Peter Pan had found Neverland, and like why Peter Pan and Hook don't get along, and like how Captain Hook named his ship, and like it's basically like a prequel to Peter Pan. And so it's like, this is a series, by the way, and I'm so excited to get into the series. I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much, and it was really interesting. It was a long, but also not really. Like, the book it's a long book, but the audiobook is like 5 hours long. So Sister sped right through that. Sister sped right through the audiobook, and I just really, really, really liked that so much. Then finally, the 18th book of the month was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I really like this book. Like, I understand the hype around it so much. I love the friendship between Harry, Evelyn, Celia, and John. Like, I love like their group dynamic, and I really, really like this book. I gave it 4.5 stars instead of 5 stars because the ending kind of felt flat to me. And I don't want to give spoilers for the book, so I'm not going to talk about like why specifically, but I don't know. The ending just kind of just fell flat to me. Like, it was a really good ending. It just didn't make me feel like how everyone else felt. And I didn't get emotional reading the ending or anything. Like, I expected to get emotional. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it was something wrong with me, but it just didn't hit me like it hit everyone else. And I just didn't really... I liked the ending, and I can't say I didn't care for it, but it was just like, meh, you know? But I'm so happy to have finally read this book. So yeah, these are all the books that I read for February. Well, all the physical books that I read at least. Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other videos. Check out my friends, you know. Bye.